Hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Joe's Technology. Of course, I'm Joe. A friend of mine came by the other day and noticed that I run multiple operating systems and asked me how I did it. Now, you've probably seen my video where I demonstrate Oracle VirtualBox, where you can run multiple operating systems on top of whatever your primary operating system is. But what he noticed is that I was able to use a video accelerator even though I was in a different OS. And the reason that was possible was because I was actually running that OS on the computer itself. And he said, well, I didn't realize this was your main OS. I said, well, I have several main OSs. And he said, well, how is that possible? So, let's see. Here. Come on, computer. It takes a second. So I showed him this little trick, and he said, wow, I didn't realize that you could do that. Well, here is the trick. In this case, I'm using Gigabyte's UEFI Dual BIOS, so shout out to Gigabyte. They're my favorite vendor of motherboards and a few other devices. And come on, Gigabyte. Here, let me grab this. And so, you know, your individual BIOS may vary. Every manufacturer has a different idea about what the BIOS should look like. But what you're looking for is your SATA, the Serial ATA Port Configuration Panel. And you can individually turn these on and off. In the old days, drives were either connected or they weren't. But here, we can actually have a drive connected, but disable its controller so that it'll sit there dormant. The benefit to us is that now we can have multiple operating systems without having to mess with silly things like dual boot partitions or, you know, those little things that point to a file that pretends to be an entire file system. So here in port 0 is an SSD. It's currently disabled, but here I'll go ahead and I'll enable it. And then I'll go down here. This port number 1 happens to be the the SSD that has my Windows games. Yeah, I could play the Windows games in Wine after a bit of configuration and some other stuff, but you know, I've got money for a copy of Windows, so I actually do run Windows, but only for gaming. It's about all it's good for. And then down here, my 3 terabyte drive, that's where Windows itself lives, because Windows is porky and needs an extreme amount of space. So I'll just say save and exit, and save that configuration. Now with the Windows ports, the ports for the Windows drives disabled, and the one for Linux, in this case it's Linux Lite enabled, I don't even have to change the boot order. It just looks and says, well, there's the drive that's available, ta-da, and now I'm in Linux Lite. And you can see how quickly that boots. Linux Lite is a joy to use for day-to-day stuff. So shout out to Linux Lite. Here, I'll put a link on the screen so that you can give it a try. And so here I am. I have multiple operating systems without having to use that multi-boot nonsense. So if I receive a big update that updates my master boot record, I don't have to worry about it corrupting or damaging my system. Because I've had that happen. Other people may have had better luck with multi-boot. I'm trying to find a distance where these scan lines don't show up. I guess I'm not going to have any luck. And I'm sure there are other people who have done better than I have with... come on, Firefox. At least try before you give me the silly message. I am connected. Here, we'll actually force it to go to a website, and sure enough, it's able to retrieve data. It's quick to give up and say, oh, I don't know where I'm going. Anyways, so now as many drives as I have available, you know, and there are some motherboards now that have a lot of SATA ports on them, so you can go really nuts. You know, if you're trying to learn about another operating system, especially if you're trying to get a certification, heck, you know what? Commit one of those SATA ports and a cheap little drive to it, and you can sit there and teach yourself everything about it, blow it away, you know, do anything that you need to, without having to, you know, put it in a virtual machine and be limited to what that VM can do. Now, if VMs are okay, you know, run it in a virtual machine. That's going to be the easiest way, but yeah, for day in, day out stuff, for me, I just like to commit a SATA port. So that's my quick little tutorial.